Budget 2025 has been announced, and NDTV brings you the 360-degree coverage and analysis of Budget 2025. A budget looking at the poor, the middle class, the salaried class, and of course, the big ask this time was the income tax relief, which the finance minister has just ended with as part of her announcement. Now, to decode this budget further, I'm joined by Vinaya Chatterjee, someone who looks at the infrastructure space very closely, Nasir Salim, someone who's tracking stock markets, which have jumped right after this income tax announcement, really. And of course, Vivek Gupta, partner at Deloitte India. Thank you all for your time. Vivek Gupta, the income tax relief, really the big ask this time across the board. NDTV spoke to citizens, economists, analysts, market experts even. And this, of course, budget catering to the middle class and the salaried class very, very clearly now.
No, that's absolutely true. I think if I were to summarize this budget in two words, the two words are consumption and investment. And the tax cuts really point to the fact that the finance minister is looking at boosting urban consumption. So a bunch of stuff done there, getting to a point where income up to 12 lakhs is fully exempt. For salary taxpayers, together with the standard deduction, getting up to 12.75 lakhs. Significant relaxations on the TDS and TCS side, I think puts lots more money in the hands of the middle class, and that boosts urban consumption. So yes, from a tax rate perspective, certainly positive from the government.
A big positive from the government. Vinaya Chatterjee, your first thoughts, a budget that is looking at being pro-poor and pro-middle class then?
I will restrict my comments to the infrastructure sector. There has been a very strong signaling in this budget that the historical trend of the last 10 years, from 2014 onwards, that used very high levels of allocation for the infrastructure sector to pump prime economic growth has effectively been delinked from this budget. There has been, in her budget speech, there has been no mention of the word infrastructure, no mention of road, rail, and various other hard infrastructure allocations have not even been mentioned. And therefore, as I said, infrastructure is no more being used as an engine for pump priming economic growth. At the same time, the budget has a major sprinkling of very good specific initiatives on infrastructure for specific sectors, including, for example, extending the sunset clause for sovereign funds and the pension funds up to for the next 5 years. And I'm not going into detail now, but whether it is new airports or whether it is interventions on credit enhancement by NABFID, etc., there is a wide variety of very positive and specific, shall we say, facilities and incentives for different sectors of infra. And these are my two broad takes right now.
Right, Nasir Salim, specific sectors being addressed. We heard a lot being announced for medical, the healthcare and medical sector as well. And markets, of course, jumping soon after the income tax announcement then.
Absolutely, Sakshi. 3-4 key points on sectors. I think the agri sector looks pretty interesting now on account of reforms to support agriculture, farmers. I think the point on self-reliance on pulses does bode well. The other quick one is, I think both my panelists just said about CapEx, big boost for Bihar in particular. But, the 1.5 lakh crore for 50-year interest-free loans for states for CapEx seems to be also doing well in terms of the push. What we need to see now, of course, is it needs to, come down to execution, even by the states. The other one in continuation is pharma. I think the entire space looks a little more, it's a little net positive before the budget. Now it's looking a little more positive because they've, too early to say anything. I have to yet to go through the list, but 36 life-saving drugs have been exempted from basic customs duty. So I think that seems to be will boost earnings for pharmaceutical companies. I think the other big one, of course, as we broke before the budget announcements was on the income tax slabs. And I had mentioned to you clearly that we're looking at that being anticipated in the announcement. So no income tax up to 12 lakhs is a big boost for consumption. I think, we saw GST numbers and consumption slowing down in 31st December numbers. I think those should start to pick up. I think the other quick one is infra, asset monetization. Those are very key, important aspects which should support
Lots
certain
of crucial sectors and
Yeah.
announcements. And of course, we will decode the fine print as well. We have Rahul Aluwalia also joining us. He is the co-founder of the Foundation for Economic Development. Thank you for your time. Purchasing power, really, and more disposable income at hand. This was the key ask. Do you think the finance minister has delivered on that?
I mean, on that, definitely, right? I think the reduction in tax slabs across the board definitely makes domestic consumption higher, but I would actually like to draw your attention to how they've made exports easier, right? Because the domestic market, if you look at our GDP as domestic market is 3.5 trillion, the export potential is 50, 60, 70 trillion, right? So I think that's where we should set our sights. And from there are a couple of very encouraging things in this budget, right? Duty rationalization makes it so we have to remember that taxes on imports are taxes on exports, right? So rationalization of taxes on imports is very important for boosting our exports. They've done that. So we should give praise where it's due. One very interesting thing that they've done, it sounds like a minor thing, but actually it could be a game changer, is this safe harbor extension for electronics manufacturing and storage, right? That's a specific provision that has been preventing very large players from making India a hub for global manufacturing. Because what it does is it opens up international entities to tax claims from Indian authorities. They have now said that they will provide safe harbor for this, right? So it really makes India a much more attractive destination for electronic sourcing. So we already had some momentum going. I do think that this is a positive movement for that too. I'll pass it back to you. There are other things, but we can...
Right. Vivek Gupta, also the finance minister, very clearly giving that startup push and encouraging women entrepreneurs as well. A key ask again. Something, of course, further ease of doing business was a key ask. You think that too is a big hit?
Look, the whole emphasis, as I said, is on fresh investments in the economy. He spoke about the extension of the sunset clause for sovereign and pension funds. I think that's a big one. Our estimate is they've opened it up for one full new cycle of 5 years, and they've said the exemption for sovereign and pension funds now goes up to 31st March 2030. The Deloitte assessment on this was this should open up at least $30 to $35 billion of foreign investment. Our working was 4 years is roughly about 28 billion. So this means $30 to $35 billion of fresh FDI into the economy in targeted sectors by investors who are long-term investors, sovereign and pension funds. So look at how cleverly the budget is done. On the one side, you're putting more money in the hands of consumers by cutting down tax rates, by pushing agriculture and therefore rural consumption demand. On the other side, to complete the virtuous cycle, as Vinayak said, without doing too much English on the word infrastructure, you have a bunch of interesting things happening there. And you're opening up, let's say, $30 to $35 billion in infra, pushing up the government's asset monetization plan. So it is for the first time a very, let's say, a very here and now immediate budget. The finance minister also said that there will be a new income tax bill in the next week. While the substantive provisions, I think, have been announced, but this new bill will further ease doing business. She said it'll be half the number of words, half the number of sections. I don't know whether that means more work for us or less. But if it's a slimmer income tax law, hopefully this whole concept of trust first and scrutinize later that the Prime Minister Modi government has stood for is something that gets carried forward in that bill.
Right.
So I would say hugely positive, both from a consumption and investment story standpoint.
Right.
And your point on startups is just feeds into that. Investment in various sectors of the economy.
Investment in various sectors of the economy. Nasir Salim, economy-sensitive stocks then. Let's talk about housing and auto. Electric vehicles also found a key mention there. Your first thoughts on how that was addressed?
I think, I wouldn't get into specific of stocks, but sectors broadly, I'm just looking now, Sakshi, and we see the FMCG index up 3% as we discussing this. In automobiles, we see some of the larger names up 6%, which is a big thumbs up to this entire consumption, broadly going up. And I think, look, the point is that we had to address the middle income group, right? they are the supporters of tax collections. We've been repeatedly saying this, that, we've done, the other quick point I said before we got into the discussion was corporate profits have gone up for FY24, all-time high. Real wages have come down. So we're hoping that with some of these changes, even on the rural economy side, income levels should start to pick up there, and which will again support this entire consumption theme. So, in a nutshell, I would say this budget looks at the middle income group, supporting the right policies for growth for them. And I think, liquidity injection,
Right.
indirectly or directly through, tax slabs, rationalization, will support the narrative ahead.
Right.